Hello, my name is Rudy Winter. I'm president of National Grid New York, and I'm honored to be able to share some thoughts with you today. I think all of you know National Grid has been a long-standing partner with AABE. We support and participate in leadership roles within New York and Greater Boston chapters. Our executives are active in executive coaching sessions, and of course, we support the annual Energy Policy Summit. I know that over the course of today's session, you'll be discussing the current state of the energy industry, highlighting the significance of diversity, and considering where the industry is headed. At National Grid, we're committed to achieving a decarbonized future while ensuring that no one gets left behind. Equity and equality are at the heart of everything that we do, and we're determined to ensure that none of our customers are left behind during this energy transition, while we're ensuring a safer, more reliable, and cleaner energy future that I know we all want. As we all engage with elected leaders on issues that are important to our businesses and our employees, we all have to be prepared to offer reasonable solutions to the problems faced by government. Problems that could amplify and cascade to affect all of our customers if the wrong policy decisions are made. We're living in a time of great change. We're living in a CLCPA world. The potential is real. The technology is evolving every day, but it all won't happen without supportive policy and regulation. We're doing things like working with Stony Brook University to study hydrogen and its potential for blending into our distribution network. In December, National Grid and the town of Hempstead, Long Island, announced a joint project to build one of the first and largest clean hydrogen projects in the U.S. The HyGrid project, located on Long Island, will aid in decarbonizing our network by blending green hydrogen into the existing distribution network. We're also partnering with the Center for Global Energy Policy at Columbia University to look at new hydrogen programs that can tackle the technology issues, the economic issues, and the energy policy issues. The bottom line is, we will need a variety of solutions to come together to achieve our decarbonized future. We'll need it all: wind, solar, battery energy storage, electrification, demand-side management. We'll need everything. While it's our sincere privilege to provide energy to approximately 4.2 million homes in New York, we're determined to work together to develop the right energy solutions to ensure that our customers' short-term energy needs are met while we transition to the decarbonized energy future that we all want. That said, the energy transition will be a process. It's a pathway that must be orderly and thoughtful and include a number of solutions. At National Grid, we've made significant corporate commitments to align with New York's ambitious climate change goals as laid out in the CLCPA. We've hard-coded all of that into what we call our Responsible Business Charter. We've set out our commitments and how we'll achieve them. Just to note, since 1990, we reduced our direct Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by 70%, and that's well in excess of our interim target, which was 45% in 2020. But there's so much more that we can do. We'll reduce our Scope 1 and Scope 2 greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2030, 90% by 2040, and be net zero by 2050. But we'll also reduce the Scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions for the electricity and natural gas we sell our customers by 20% by the year 2030. During the transition, existing infrastructure must be protected as we innovate, both to be able to serve existing customers safely during the transition, but also to build the infrastructure for the future, the infrastructure that we're going to need and our customers will need. But we're also working on the workforce for the future, creating a workforce that will help build New York's clean energy future and create jobs that we'll need for the next 20 and 30 years. New York can be at the forefront of innovation and lead the country. We can attract and retain businesses. We can spur workforce development, and we can achieve a decarbonized future if we do it together. We regularly analyze and report on our customers' energy needs. This planning process has identified a wide range of options to meet those needs. And during that process, it's also our practice to seek extensive public and stakeholder input. The result is a portfolio of some demand-side solutions, but also some targeted infrastructure solutions. And at National Grid, we're committed to being that responsible business in everything we do. And what does that responsibility mean? We've identified where we think we have the greatest impact on society, and that's in the environment, the communities that we serve, our people, the economy, and even our governance. To reinforce this commitment, we launched Project C with a statewide day of service last year. Many of you may have seen National Grid in your neighborhood. On that day, we had over 1,000 National Grid employees volunteering at 60 different events across the state. Funded by National Grid shareholders, Project C focuses on 4 key priorities: clean energy, workforce development, neighborhood investment, and environmental justice. National Grid is showing up in our communities even stronger than we have in the past. We're thinking beyond our conventional energy delivery systems and services and helping to create a more equitable future for every customer and every neighborhood we serve. National Grid has been a supporter of New York's NAACP branches across our service territory for more than 20 years, and will continue to strengthen our partnership with NAACP and support their ongoing efforts to combat social and economic disparities in our communities. We're also offering funding in the form of small business technical assistance grants and our Leave It Better program. The Leave It Better program supports the communities and supports community projects that we would ease the impact of National Grid's construction work by restoring the impacted areas or creating an offsetting community benefit. And I'm also particularly proud of our work with workforce development. We will continue to engage with the communities and customers we serve, responding to their needs and providing the services that satisfy them. I look forward to working with all of you to enhance the communities that we serve and making the clean energy future a reality. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us today.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for attending the AABE-NYMAC 2022 Virtual Energy Summit over the past 2 days. My name is Kenneth Shaw, and I'm an attorney in the Department of Employee and Labor Relations at Edison. I'm also a member of AABE-NYMAC, and I've been given the honor to provide a few closing remarks to wrap up the program. Now, every time we have a summit, I realize that every panel discussion and speech exists in front of a backdrop. And that backdrop is the urgency to deal with climate change. Although climate change has been the subject of political debate, what's not a debate is that global warming is a scientific fact. Its effects are also a scientific fact. A year ago, our summit addressed how climate change is causing the business model of utilities to adapt. We learned that stronger hurricanes hit the East Coast more frequently in the summer, that hot spells caused more wildfires on the West Coast, and ironically, warmer climates also cause Arctic air to dip further south in the winter, where power systems are not winterized in places like Texas. We learned that all of those events are causing blackouts that disproportionately affect communities of color because these communities get disconnected first and are often the last to get reconnected to the grid. Now, the effects of racial inequality was only further supported by a pandemic that showed minorities were more likely to have comorbidities that exacerbated the effects of COVID-19. As a result, there's a mandate for utilities to deal with higher energy demands caused by climate change, to reduce reliance on fossil fuels that cause global warming, to rely further on wind, solar, and innovative ways to generate electricity and renewable energy as an alternative energy source. There's also a mandate for diversity and inclusion within communities that formulate policies that address how utilities and cities will comply with that mandate. Now, as stated before, that mandate exists along a backdrop, highlighted by this summit, that there is a dire sense of urgency for utilities to commit to an all-electric future to deal with the effects of climate change. And I believe that sense of urgency was captured by a number that was cited yesterday in the Journey to Zero panel. That number is the number 28. 28 years from now will be the year 2050. And 2050 is the year that the Biden administration earmarked as the deadline for the US to achieve a 100% clean energy economy and net zero emission. 28 years is not a long time. I mean, think about how fast this past year has gone. And truly, how much has really changed in merely 12 months? A year had 29 years until 2050. And in that year, the government introduced the Build Back Better budget bill, which provides over $500 billion to expand investments in renewable energy, provide electric vehicle tax cuts, and invest in carbon capture technology to spur job growth. But that bill stalled in the Senate. Thus, a year later, on a federal level, with 28 years left, nothing has changed. And addressing climate change is still at the mercy of local government and the private sector, which heavily demands fossil fuels. But it only takes small changes in the average global temperature to see the effects of climate change. For example, 20,000 years ago, an ice age occurred because the global average temperature was merely 5 degrees Celsius cooler than the average temperature just around the Industrial Revolution. But I think more numbers are needed to show how dire our current situation really is. The first number, 0.17. According to the US Environmental Protection Agency and the World Economic Forum, global temperatures rose by 0.17 degrees Fahrenheit each decade since 1901. The US has actually warmed at a faster rate since 1979 at roughly 0.31 to 0.54 degrees Fahrenheit per decade. Another number is the number 1.2. The years 2016 and 2020 were roughly 1.2 degrees Celsius hotter than the average temperature of the world before the Industrial Revolution. In fact, those are the hottest years on record. And all of those weather events I just talked about happened in 2020. Another number is the number 1.5. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change drafted a report explaining that a 1.5 Celsius degree global warming increase was a threshold from which the world could recover if climate change policies were put in place to reduce emissions. And the Biden administration is using that threshold as a guidepost. Finally, the numbers 2 and 3. Between merely 2 and 3 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial revolution levels, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, several things happen. The Arctic Ocean would be ice-free in the summer, where biodiversity would lose their habitat. 90% of global coastlines would rise and disproportionately affect the world's poorest communities. Places like Pakistan, India, and China see greater risks of flooding and lower crop yields. The areas from West to East Africa and South Africa would see more heat waves and higher risks of undernutrition due to affected wetlands and food sources. The Mediterranean would see extreme droughts that threaten biodiversity. Small islands everywhere would see coastal flooding that threatens their fresh water. Coral reefs would be lost, increasing the acidity of the ocean, killing significant marine life. 25% of insects would actually lose half their territory, reducing pollination and further affecting the food chain. And in the US, on average, there could be a GDP loss of up to 1.2% per degree of warming. Now, as this summit explained over the past 2 days, you deal with the urgency of these numbers through legislation, education, diversity, and inclusion. And we are fortunate to be in a state like New York that passed the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. That law requires a reduction in greenhouse gases of no less than 85% by 2050. And that law has important features. Number 1, a draft scoping plan. That plan will provide the framework on how New York achieves its climate goals. Number 2, a public comment period. New Yorkers right now can give their input on that plan until the end of April. Number 3, a climate justice working group. The law acknowledges that climate change disproportionately affects some communities and that these communities have unequal access to clean energy. Now, that working group is designed to contribute to the scoping plan and to ensure that disadvantaged communities receive up to 40% spending on clean energy, projects or investment in housing, workforce development, pollution reduction, low-income energy assistance, energy transportation, and economic development. With a nod towards climate legislation that values diversity and inclusion, utilities and businesses must commit to alternative energy production with a nod towards racial justice by focusing on diversity and inclusion. This includes D&I initiatives to get diverse suppliers and contractors, mentoring initiatives to promote employees to executive roles, internship opportunities for diverse students seeking entry to the industry, and committing through D&I initiatives to increase renewable energy efficiency. Now, AABE-NYMAC and current politicians must continue to lead the efforts of diverse participation in the scope of New York's law, as well as continue to support education initiatives of high school and college students seeking employment opportunities that will benefit from that law. And investing in education is the most important of AABE's movement, because 28 years from now, the high school and college graduates, including the NYU students that organized this summit, will be the politicians, entrepreneurs, utility and business leaders in charge of how the world deals with climate change beyond 2050. In conclusion, I'd like to thank Bill Suggs, Deborah AABE, and everyone who participated in organizing this panel. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Ken. And once again, thank you for joining today's summit. And please remember to visit AABE-NYMAC.org for information on future events. And please remember that the entire summit will be on the AABE-NYMAC YouTube channel. Thank you.